Hi,
Hi, Jonathan.
Hello, hello. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I hope everybody's had an opportunity to. I know we got it out late, but got had an opportunity to at least look at the policy. And I didn't want to cancel this meeting because we had given you guys this date. We had given you this update in the HSAT meeting on Wednesday. Because I had got some suggestions that maybe we should postpone it. And I said, I didn't want to do that because we also set a course for HSAC to be able to review it um, prior to our next HSAT meeting. And so I wanted to leave some room in case, we had a session today. We didn't really tackle everything or perfect everything that we wanted to perfect. And it would buy us like a gap week to be able to, if we needed to reconvene again, we could like have some room to reconvene before a special HSAT meeting. So, while I know that this is can have been difficult for some people to um, attend today with how what time we got the policy out, I felt like I still needed and wanted us to move forward so that people can see that progress is being made, um, and we are well on our way to developing a policy. So I don't know. Maybe I should give maybe 2 more minutes and we'll get started, Dr. Battle, at 12:32. Okay.
yes,
I saw you nodding your head, so I
yes,
figured.
yes. I I realized after.
Dr. Battle, would you like share screen access? Are you going to be trying to do some work on the document in real time from your responses
I
or
would prefer if we listen again, and then
understood?
I can go through record, of course, and then I can go through the recording
Gotcha.
so that I'm really, focused in the discussion and ensuring that I ask the clarifying questions,
Okay,
etc.
sounds good.
Mhm. A second, I just need to, before we start, I just need to do one thing here.
Okay, all as promised, it's 12:32. I'm gonna officially open up our 10th distribution draft policy review and listening session. It's good to see you all here. I hope you've had opportunities to look over the document. I hope that you are ready to have a discussion with our facilitator so that we can work on refining the document. Um, I would like to just say thank you to Dr. Battle. She's had some stuff go on since the last time we were together, and she has pushed through and persevered. And I am very pleased with um, the document that she has prepared for us and eager for us to make progress on making this thing a reality. So without further ado, I'm gonna take my camera off and I'm gonna mute and I'm gonna open the floor for you, Dr. Battle, to move forward. Thanks all.
Sure. And just to be clear, you're sharing the screen, correct? Are you sharing the document, or I can do that? I guess I'll do it so we can just systematically go through. Earlier today, I had trouble sharing on, let me close that. Hopefully this will go. Yay. Okay. There we go. Are you able to see? And I can make it larger as well, but I'm pretty sure you all have this in front of you. Make sure I'm not muted. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So after our initial listening session and email session, I compiled all that information from the polls and the discussion, from the poll and the discussion. And then we followed up with a working session where we spent the day really going through the feedback that was provided from those two options, email and poll. For those who did not, and we have an hour, correct? Or is it an hour and a half today?
It's an hour.
All right. Okay. So I just want to give a brief overview of the system that I used to really ground your feedback. I really tried to delve into, really understanding, the thought process, the daily activities of the organizations. I'm still learning about many, and really look forward and thank you for the invitations that came to participate and actually see, because for me participatory experience is really helpful, especially for me and my learning style. So using the information which we already discussed in those sessions, I used Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's theory of human caring, Bronfenbrenner's ecological systems theory, and Maslow's hierarchy of needs to integrate the framework and to provide the comprehensive strategy. So basically, whatever you all provided or whatever we provided at those sessions fit very well into this framework that really grounds this policy. Yes, we have work to do. We have additional work to do, and it's a living document. So we're continuing to make revisions. I truly appreciate all the feedback and even feedback up to today based on the document that was sent out. And I look forward to hearing from each of you. Again, this is a communal work, a community effort. And I'm merely facilitating to ensure that we put forward a comprehensive document that we can systematically implement. So we have in here 3 phases, which we will get to in just a second. And I want to actually go through each one of these. So Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's theory of human caring is primarily known for her stages of grief. Kubler-Ross's work emphasizes the importance of emotional support and understanding in times of crisis. This can be applied to providing psychological support to individuals experiencing homelessness. And I'll say further about the three theories as well. Bronfenbrenner's ecological systems theory highlights the interconnectedness of individual development within various environmental systems, the micro, meso, exo, macro, and chrono. And I have a chart to share with you on those. It emphasizes the need for supportive environments to foster positive outcomes. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which we really delve into in at least one of our sessions, and the importance of meeting those basic needs. And sometimes, from also my experience with establishing hospice care in my birth country of Belize, oftentimes we would go into the homes of individuals to provide our free end-of-life care support, medical checkup and things like that. And when we enter the homes, those basic needs are not there, there's no gas to cook with, there's no food to cook, there's no running water, you know? So I really understand the challenges faced on multi-level on the importance of the connectedness of the Durham, the continuum of care for the unhoused, and how critical that is to be able to call on these various networks to do what you do best. So prioritizing basic psychological needs, basic needs such as food and shelter, clothing, safety, esteem before moving to the higher level needs, safety, love, esteem, self-actualization. Addressing homelessness requires meeting these basic needs. So phase one is, which again, I'm still learning. We're between phase one and phase two. So phase one, continued distribution of tents with required identification and geohome location as a temporary solution for a person who is in the process of being housed. So the above three theories ground a comprehensive three-phase approach outlined below. And I really do need your help so that we can solidify and really discuss an action plan as well as an implementation plan. Once we get to a point where we can agree on these three phases, on where they are, and please continue to educate me as well if I am not at the right place in terms of understanding where we currently are with the services that are being provided and how I've delineated these three phases. So, so the objective of phase one, provide immediate shelter and necessities to individuals in need. So Kubler-Ross offered emotional support and counseling to address psychological, and I've covered those. Then the Bronfenbrenner engaging community organizations, which falls under the mesosystem, to distribute tents and supplies, fostering a supportive environment. And Maslow, meet basic psychological needs, shelter, food, through tent distribution and meal services. And so based on my understanding of where we are right now in phase one, these are the services that are being provided as it relates to tents and tent distribution and those who live within this context and require the need for tents. Then phase two, and we'll come back and discuss it. I'm just doing an overview. So phase two, continued dialogue with all agencies in Durham's continuum of care. Continuum of care to identify geographic and structural solutions towards net zero homelessness. And phase two, temporary supported communities. And we have actually, so what I've done was to replace sanction encampments to using the term temporary supported communities. In this document. So the objective is to create safe, organized living spaces with access to services. And then Kubler-Ross continue emotional support and counseling within the encampments. And according to Bronfenbrenner, develop encampments as microsystems with access to healthcare, sanitation, social services, integration with broader community resources. In those ecosystems. So Maslow ensures safety, security within the encampment, addressing the next level of needs after basic psychological ones. So what we're looking at really, basically what I've done was really look at your feedback, look at your concerns, all valid concerns, experiential concerns, driven, so that we can then say, okay, we're justified, right? It's not just, I feel this, or I think that this is not that that's what has been done, but presenting this, we as a group can say we have done that work. Phase 3, develop Durham home inclusive communities, a comprehensive community for unhoused individuals, including components of phase 1 and 2. Phase 3 includes residential components being the primary solution for the unhoused, while continued services are provided by the Durham Continuum of Care in these 4 to 6 identified communities throughout Durham. So I know we have some questions around the 4 to 6 identified communities. I'm going to share what I envision, and then we can talk about this and maybe come up with some kind of maybe hybrid of what that could potentially look like in phase 3. In order to end homelessness, what do we want that to look like? Does that look like what we as individuals, those who are writing the policy, would want for ourselves, right? So that is the approach that I took in terms of this is what we can envision. And that this will require further buy-in, discussion, and implementation policies and structures. So phase 3, comprehensive home sites. So the objective, provide permanent housing solutions with integrated support services, and Kubler-Ross offering ongoing same psychological support. Then Bronfenberg, establish home sites as stable microsystems within a supportive community connected to broader societal resources. And Maslow, fulfill higher level needs by providing opportunities for social connection, esteem building activities, and pathways to self-actualization through education and employment. So if we look at phase 1, we look at phase 2, and we look at phase 3, we are systematically utilizing the knowledge from these hierarchies and from these theories to help guide us into what a system could look like, a healthy, respectful system could look like. And it builds upon each phase. So this approach integrates the emotional, environmental, hierarchical, and needs perspectives to create a holistic strategy for addressing homelessness in Durham. So these 3 phased frameworks, informed by listening sessions with polls completed by 32 individuals and 16 email responses from organizations within Durham's Continuum of Care, as well as a work session to review and further explore through a trauma-informed lens, immediate relief to individuals experiencing homelessness while facilitating their transition to stable, permanent housing. By addressing both the immediate, intermediate, and long-term solutions, this policy can help mitigate homelessness in a strategic, humane, and effective manner. I did take note of some feedback. I acknowledge them and wholeheartedly embrace those feedback, and those will be integrated throughout this. I'm talking and scrolling. One second. I'm scrolling over the most important thing. Hold on. Okay. Immediate long-term solutions can mitigate homelessness strategy. So the guiding principles of human dignity, safety and well-being, equity, collaboration. Those are really the core components. And as your feedback informed those guiding principles, your feedback essentially, specifically actually, included immediate shelter and safety, temporary solution, and harm reduction. Each have 4 bulleted sections under that, which I hope that you had some time to read through. Dignity and autonomy, distribution and resource connection, designated spaces and sanitation, monitoring and support. So folding all of those. So went up a little bit. So this policy acknowledges that while tents are not a long-term solution, they are a necessary and potentially life-saving intervention given the current lack of shelter capacity and affordable housing options. The policy aims to provide immediate resources to vulnerable individuals while working towards more sustainable housing solutions while grounded in the knowledge more suitable, sustainable long-term solutions are necessary. And this in particular, we do have a little editing to do based on the feedback already received. Definitions, and if you feel like there should be additional definitions and in here, do let me know. One of the things that I can see where we need to change here, temporary solutions. Okay, housing solutions. So, and if you feel like we should include some acronyms, I know I am horrible with acronyms. I will pause for extended periods to figure it out. But so I do like to include acronyms. It helps, especially for people who are new to the system, because one acronym here in this system may be different in another system, very likely, right? So I'm just going through these. So we have these here. Then we have residents and phase one, tented shelter and sanctioned encampments with guided support. Oh, from Durham, a continuum of care and related services, shelters and emergency shelters. Phase two, transitional hybrid with guided support comes to Durham, COC and related. Oh, why I keep doing that? Services phase three, communal permanent residents in sanctioned structural communities with hybrid living options and guided support. Okay. In cases where emergency shelter is not available or not appropriate in any of the three phases, Durham Continuum of Care Homeless Services provides and City County Department may issue tents to unsheltered household. The provision of tents will be for use on temporary supported communities or may be asked to relocate. Before I move further, one really important point that I like to make, this policy is set up, it's designed in a way, this draft policy is designed in a way that each of all of you, your organizations that have submitted feedback, you get to really help to design the program that you envision in each phase. What we need to work through as a community is a timeline for how we envision that each of these phases will be implemented or continue to be implemented, along with a timeline of how and a transition plan to phase two. Because as we move from phase one, the likelihood that phase one will be minimized, and then phase two will take on the basic structure of the current homeless or unhoused structure for the city of Durham. And once we can provide those services, we're also continuing to develop phase three. So your voices are heard, your commitment to ensuring that the community and the city of Durham and all those involved, we're holding them accountable to ensuring that they're systematically working towards ending homelessness. And if once we establish this this timeline, this action plan, and this implementation plan, and they vote on it and accept it, then we have a living document that we can continue to work towards and hold them accountable as well. So hopefully while I was talking, you were able to read through some of this. Oh, yes. So we have here that tents must be marked with distributing agency or municipality department logo that is visible from at least 10 feet. And some feedback that we already received on this, and I wholeheartedly agree, while it may be difficult or it's costly to attach a logo, and it is, why not use a Sharpie, right? Why not use a Sharpie to mark it? So we can also discuss that as well in terms of cost, practicality, and what that could actually look like. Because if the tents are being destroyed, right? I mean, and if we're looking at a phased implementation plan, then we're investing resources where it's not necessarily necessary. And while this may be true, it may work with logos in one phase and not the other. So let's also discuss that. Documented to whom and when provided as a service transaction in the homeless management information system. And then sign acknowledgements and notices by the recipient. And the agency distributing the tent is responsible for the cleanup removal. So these are various components that we are going to discuss. Distributing agencies. Okay. Must require supportive services to households. I skip past that. Okay. And then eligibility. While no person will be denied an available tent due to lack of identification, priority for tents will be given to households. Engage with Entry Point Durham, who are awaiting shelter availability, willing to be documented as tent recipients and sign acknowledgements. The purpose of documentation is primarily to ensure the safety of all in the homeless communities. So let's just touch on, I just want to touch on this for a second. The documentation, which I've also personally experienced in other programs that I've established, is safety. Ensuring that, and this will require depth and breadth of discussion in the future, but I'd like to touch on it primarily for sex offenders, those who can easily infiltrate an already vulnerable system, right? We're not excluding anyone. However, there needs to be protocols in place and systems in place to consistently track, as we are equally responsible as agencies and entities that are providing services, just to ensure the safety of all involved, even our volunteers. Willing to engage with case managers to access mainstream services in pursuit of ending their homelessness through exit to permanent housing. So we're almost there. Hopefully you can read faster than I'm reading here. Then notification, distributing agencies must inform notified tent recipients. Given the lack of shelter capacity, tents can provide privacy while waiting for transitional housing. I'm not deliberately browsing through this, but we're breezing through this, but we're going to have to come back through it again so we can go through. I'm going to go page by page. And now I want us to review. So this is, oh yeah, maybe 30 minutes. And within that 30 minutes, if we're not able to get through the entire document, you have a copy of it. And if you can then also send us an email on your feedback and say page, page 5 or page 6. So let's start with page 1. Want to make sure this is clear to you, and that if you have any recommendations, it's voiced, so then I can go back and listen to this recording. And when you
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I noticed most of you are muted, so I'm going to go back to Miss McCullers so she can then provide further instruction.
So are we opening the floor now, Dr. Battle, for responses?
Unless you have something else to add.
I don't have anything else right now to add, other than, maybe we may need another session, because we only slotted 30 minutes. I mean, 1 hour for this session, and we have 30 minutes remaining. And so I'm just gonna remove myself so that we can get some feedback in this last 30 minutes.
Okay, one more thing. I feel like also that with the 30 minutes, if they follow up with feedback from the email, through email, like some did for the last after the poll, what we can then do is make revisions, and then we can have another session where we review everything. What do you think about that? You're muted.
I'm sorry. That's fine that's fine for us to do it in
Okay.
that way.
Okay. See their chats. And who's checking the chat? Ms. McCullers?
I
Is
am.
someone checking? Okay.
I am.
All right. I'm not seeing those messages. I just see numbers. Okay. All right. The floor is open. There and no feedback on this.
Eliza, are you gone? I think Eliza is gone, but Eliza did have some questions in the chat.
Okay.
I was attempting to answer them, but now she's gone. I see Anissa's hand. So Anise.
Hey, everybody.
Hello.
First of all, I just want to say thank you, Rachel, for all of your work on this. It's clear how much thought and effort has been put into this and how much you've listened and digested so much of what the community has said. I actually have comments later on the actual policy section. So I'm going to hold on comments. I just wanted to say I echo Sharita's sentiment. I think another session on this would be really good, especially on some of the finer grained policy portions of this that I'll get into later.
Okay. Thank you. Samantha, I see your hand up.
Yes, and sorry for interrupting earlier. I had a question about this phrase in phase 1, the blue text, geo home location, and how that shows up in the policy part at the end of the document. Can you expand on what that means?
Sure. And that was, one second, I'm going to show you what that is, and that will be changed to, 1 second. Did I scroll past that? And we're going to be consistent with the, and it's actually here in blue.
They may have letters. She
Yeah.
does not know what they are.
That's BS.
Hmm?
I'm sorry, you guys.
Temporary supported communities, that will replace that geo home location.
Oh, so that wasn't.
Yes, that's what it, yes, this was my term that I, yes.
Okay. That
Yes.
that wasn't
Yes, makes sense?
that wasn't intended to say like we are tracking the location.
Oh, no.
Okay.
I'll do that right now. And that's not to say we are not, the communities are not going to be tracked. That's something that we'll have to, which I believe they already are. Because there should be identified so they can, I'm just changing this color here back to the right blue. There we go. Okay. Okay, and that was, so can we move to the next page, or is there any other question regarding that?
I did just want to bring up for this first phase, quickly. I did send this in an email, so I won't take up too much time here, but
Okay.
I think it's really important. Like this body, the Homeless Services Advisory Council, has a huge weight on policy in the city and county. Huge weight. They look to this body for all things policy, for unhoused neighbors. And with all the camping bans, sleeping bans going on in North Carolina and across the country in the current political environment, I think it's important that we make an explicit ask to, protect the rights of people to exist on public property, including sleeping. And make that, while we, cannot enforce that as a body, it's very important to, I think, include that as a recommendation to our political representatives.
Okay.
And that would also, kind of make it so this policy could work in the future.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see any other hands up, so if you can raise your hand or just unmute and say your name and.
This is Samantha again. I guess I just had some definitional questions on this Durham home inclusive communities on phase 3, as well as like what we're meaning by the residential components. Is that including the temporary residents of being sheltered in a tent, or is that inclusive of like congregate shelter? Yeah.
Okay. Once again, those are, you're correct, definitional issues that will be clarified. Again, phase 2 is temporary supported communities. This was a term that I've placed here. This would be a permanent supported community. Because phase 3, we're looking at more permanent solutions.
Okay.
Which would then mean we can, for operational definition purposes, that can be in the section above, where we have a section below. Yes. With all the definitions. Just want to make sure we're right here. And we did speak about permanent housing in phase 3. So that is consistent with the permanent communities. Any other thank you so much, Samantha. Just going to continue. Just stop me when you see a section that you'd like to comment on. One thing I'd like to add here, Ms. McCullers, I think it's really important, and I did not do this, that we add the number of organizations that participated, and I know we have that list, so that will be added in there. Just putting that there for now.
Understood.
Rachel, I do have a question.
Sure.
Hi, this is Abena. I'm going to echo what Anise and others have said regarding the time and energy that you help for us that you have been here and put this together. My two clarifying questions, just so that I have a greater understanding, is
Sure.
the initial information that we're going over now, is that intended to be in the actual policy? Because it looks like the policy starts at Roman number 3. And then how will this initial information like truly impact the policy? Because reading over the policy, it looks as if it's the same policy that we initially had prior to the meetings coming together and debriefing and sharing how we would like to see some things change and some things staying the same. So it looks the same. And again, if some of those questions will be answered later, then I'll pause. But I did want to get understanding on if the initial information would be in the actual policy, or did you put it in here so that everyone would have a greater understanding of your ideology and where you were coming from?
Sure. So we included not only the policies, the feedback towards the policies from the polls, the discussion, the initial draft policy, additional feedback, and those are all combined here. I took all of the feedback and measured them against that existing policy, and we have the essential components together. So what I want from you all today is to be able to look at this and provide your honest feedback, and feedback that will help us to develop this into, or finalize this into, a policy that we can agree on and move forward on. So yes, it includes components of all feedback, because all entities are equally important, all individuals and all programs. So yes, absolutely. As we go through this, if you have specific questions regarding those, we can do that. We can definitely answer those questions and elaborate on them.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. So
Dr.
for
Battle, can I just add something? Avena,
Sure.
would you be so kind, the areas of your concerns? Could you put those areas of your concerns, like briefly, kind of do a summary in the chat, please? Because we will be getting all of this stuff to
Yeah.
Dr. Battle in revisions to it, okay?
Definitely will. And I put it in there. I'll definitely do it today, but I put it in there beforehand, and I put it in when we had the initial meetings early this year, late last year, when this policy initially came out.
And
Understood.
also, I would encourage emailing it, because are you copying from the chat right now? Because if you've already sent it in, I want to make sure that that is seen and considered. If I did not receive it, I want to make sure that I receive it.
Okay, no, I can email it, and I did before.
Okay.
But I mean, I can do it again.
Do you see it in the comprehensive document? As you recall, in our discussion, I did ask if you didn't see your feedback. Actually, on the working session, I asked if you didn't see your feedback, that I have it coded, that, so please go through. And
Yep, I did.
Identify, okay.
Hi, this is Samantha again, and apologies, my webcam is just not working today.
That's fine, we can hear you.
I like to be on community or on video community, but it's not working today. I just wanted to kind of relay two overarching pieces of feedback or ask a question about them from the county side. because on the county side, there has been a lot of concern over if we do distribute tents, the sanitation, safety, which are definitely leading principles of this. I see that in all of the work prior to Roman numeral like 3, where we get to policy. But I'm wondering, like, what will those tangible things be in the policy, aside from, I know that that's something that they are advised of, how to, they're advised on sanitation and things like that when a tent is distributed to a neighbor, I believe, for this, as well as maybe a little bit more clarity on who it is that should be contacted. And I think this gets a little complicated because it leads into, in my perception, the encampment response policy. But another concern I hear on the county side is, okay, say that we do distribute the tents and there is this sanitation and safety concern that's that is handled. Who do we contact when? What is the clear mechanism for when a complaint does come in, or there is a concern over, you know, someone's well-being or something like that? And Sharita, I in the chat wanting maybe some guidance on where does the tent policy end and the encampment response policy begin, perhaps?
So, I mean, it's really tricky because they kind of feed and live together. We just had like an encampment policy and no tent policy.
Right.
And I think like what you're sharing is the challenge, because I think the heartbeat of how we're trying to respond impacts all of the other systemic others, you know, like sanitation and things like that. Like all of it is so like we can't just do one thing and not take into consideration all the other things it impacts, right? And so the tents in our community have impacted our encampment policy. So at some point they are going to feed into each other because they are kind of they go together. You know, and just in the way our system is designed, they share a space. If a tent gets in a place that's not a place where a tent can be, or where there's uproar, the encampment policy was getting activated, which is why we are started this distribution process in the first place. What do we need to do? You know, if we clearly know that we have unsheltered persons in our community who can't or won't, or, you know, have challenges that make congregate living not a viable option for them. Like, you know, where is the middle ground where we can serve this group of people, because they are a part of the continuum. We cannot continue to ignore this problem. And likely in the climate that what we're seeing, you know, homelessness has the opportunity at this point to grow even more and be comprised of even more complicated living first-time homeless persons reality and situations. And so how do we as a system respond to all of those things, knowing that, you know, this problem has the opportunity at this time to even grow beyond that? So I don't think you can separate them. I mean, just like, you know, we want to move towards a sanctioned encampment, temporary supported community. It's still going to have to be built out. So these policies are going to feed into each other and overlap. There's no way around it.
I see 2 hands up. I just want to make a quick comment. I did ask those questions as well because it's really important to understand, you know, who and where and what, in terms of the sanitation component. And is it a gap that can be filled by maybe another organization that's, or add on to another organization, an existing organization, to provide such services? And then at what point and how do you access? So many different pieces to it. Okay, I think it was Anise first, or is your hand up from the last time, Anise, or is,
No,
am I
no, no,
saying
it
your,
was
am
me.
I saying your name correctly? First of all,
You're doing great.
okay.
You're doing great. But so I wanted to kind of like chime in on the encampment policy portion of it, as well as some other portions here. Because I think this is, I think we have a lot here that we can really work from and really kind of carry forward. But there are some areas that I think might need a little bit of evolution here. So on the encampment response policy, so that's section 3E, it seems to me does actually contradict our current encampment response policy, where the responsibilities for who does cleanup are fairly clear in that policy. And so we'd want to make sure we align with that, because if we have two city policies or two policies the city is supposed to abide by, but that have different instructions, it becomes very unclear and confusing to staff who is responsible for what. So I just want to make sure that those two things get aligned, and it seems pretty aligned from the encampment, or it seems pretty clear from the encampment response policy who's responsible for what. The second thing that I wanted to note here was that in section 3D, we talk about signed acknowledgements, which is one version, but we also need to include verbal consent here, and we also need to note that services can't be denied based on lack of consent. That's HMIS data standards. It's on the page 49 of their latest sort of data standards. And as well, it's on CH's. Yep.
I'm sorry, could you point out again which one? I want to make sure that I'm highlighting it.
3D, right above E. Yeah, there you go.
Got
3D.
it. Okay.
And so we can just refer in that portion to the standard HUD guidance, as opposed to sort of, naming ourselves, because that might be the easiest way to do it, or NCCH's guidance. Either way, I think should work. The other thing that I wanted to note here was on section 4A. And so this is where we start talking about purchase and distribution, and there is the households per case manager section of this. So I wanted to outline some moments then where, if this was a requirement, some moments where, for example, any staff would not be able to hand out a tent if we were requiring a case manager. So we come across unhoused individuals with severe and persistent mental illness who, out of paranoia and fear, don't want to be involved in case management or supportive services. We come across unhoused families who, rightly or wrongly, believe that if they sign up for case management or supportive services, CPS will take away their children. And we come across survivors of domestic violence who believe that formally enrolling in a program will mean that the perpetrators of their abuse will be able to locate them more easily. So they often reject any supportive services management. So I want to highlight a few things here. One is just the real human element of this, that when we have this stipulation in here, this becomes something that actively does harm to certain populations. The other thing that I wanted to note on this is I actually am not sure we can have that stipulation. I think, so according to our own COC's project standards, let's see, I'm going to read it out. Projects may make services available and engage individuals to participate in higher level services, i.e. case management, but cannot make service usage a requirement. And so we have that in our own project standards. More problematically, honestly, is what HUD itself says about this. So HUD says that recipients can set policies, but that recipients should carefully consider, and I'm happy to send all this guidance. This is HUD's own guidance. Recipients should carefully consider whether requiring participation in a particular service is aligned with the recipient's priorities, e.g. housing first, or could result in an unjustified disparate impact or discriminatory effect, which is a violation of the Fair Housing Act, even when the provider had no intent to discriminate, e.g. under a drug testing or sobriety policy or practice. I'd be particularly concerned when it comes to victims or survivors of domestic violence and folks with SPMI, as well as families with young children. Those are all populations that are protected in different ways. And so my fundamental point is that on these requirements here, I think we're in a place where we can really kind of evolve and move forward and like work with this, but we need like real legal review here, and not like, people with actual JDs, people who are in the city attorney's office, need to weigh in on these things. And it can't, and so that's one other thing. And then the final thing that I had here to note was that I'm not sure,
Yeah,
and
go
I
back
think this is a question for POC, but I'm not sure if the tent policy would have the authority to sort of dictate a phase process. That's a genuine question. I have no idea, and I think it's worth conversation around that. And so I think kind of as you see, as I'm speaking here, I think we have a lot of really good stuff here. And I think the values that you've outlined, Rachel, at the top are just like so key and so important. And I think there's a way to make sure that those values also show up in practice when this policy is implemented. And that I think will just require some changes to the actual policy.
Gotcha. Thank you. Colin? Would you like me to scroll back up? Are you
You're
good?
good.
Okay.
I just wanted to do just a quick level set because there were a few things
Okay.
that I think we just need to keep in mind. One, Durham does not have any laws that prohibit people from camping in public spaces. The only time camps are asked to be removed from public spaces is when that public space is not able to be used in the way in which it was designed. So if somebody's camping in the park, for instance, like we just cleaned up Oakwood Park, people had made Oakwood Park their neighborhood. There were 5 or 8 tents in that park. People were not able to use that park during daytime hours because tents were taking up the field to play in. There was East End Park, a complaint came in about human waste where kids were sledding in the snow. So when tents and encampments trigger an area to be unusable by others, or an encampment area becomes a health or safety issue, that is when tents are being or encampments are being removed from those public spaces because of trash, needles, or inability to use the space. The second piece is I saw Anise talking about the encampment response policy. Yes, the encampment response policy does dictate who cleans up encampments. The challenge is when if you've got groups giving out tents, then it triggers another group to go out and assess and determine whether or not the tent needs to be taken down. That is why this was sort of put in here as a recommendation that if you give out the tents, it's not necessarily, maybe case management is too strong a word, but this is sort of, if you give out a tent, it's a carrot to engage with people to get to permanent housing. We are not in the business, and the homeless system is not in the business of keeping people in tents forever and ever, amen. Our goal is to get people into housing and exit homelessness. If people want to live in tents forever, then that's fine, but that's not what the homeless system is designed to enable people to live in tents forever. The homeless system is designed to move people to permanent housing if that's their wish. So in terms of the case management piece, it's give out tents in a way that you can manage the folks that you've given tents to, going out, checking on them, engaging with them, trying to motivate them and helping them to move to permanent housing. So I just kind of wanted to level set this. It's not like people have to be engaged in intensive permanent housing placement. It's a whole big piece.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thanks.
Ricky?
Ricky,
you're
you're muted. Okay.
I am
there you
no,
go.
no, I just got here. I was trying to get my camera on. Dr. Battle, I just want to thank you so much for the thoughtfulness with which you have listened to our community and taking our suggestions and pulling this body of work together. So Dr. Battle, just thank you. I did want to address something that Anise offered earlier in regards to HUD guidance. So, HUD's guidance is largely around permanent housing and housing programs. They don't necessarily have a stance, if you will, on the distribution of tents, other than if a community chooses to do so, it needs to be in collaboration with some sort of permanent housing access. The only guidance that our system has received from HUDs asking about distribution, their guidance, and this was shared with the community also, is that they don't have an issue with it during inclement weather, right? Like that's provided in their guidance. But I do think, to Anissa's point, you know, there may need to be the involvement of definitely legal minds on this, and, you know, within the city attorney's department also, when we're talking about, you know, responsibilities of who does what and when, you know, should tent distribution cause an enactment of the encampment response policy. I think that kind of goes away if we have a space that we have decided as a community is dedicated to camping. So I just wanted to add that, and just thank you for all the work that you've done on this, Dr. Battle.
Sure, you're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for your feedback. That I think it was Anise that also made that point about you know, the three phases, and whether we're able to include that or not, it actually maybe could be presented as something for the consideration in the future, right? Charita? Oh, it's 1:30.
Yes, so I was coming because we're at time. And this is a very good discussion. I'm grateful for it. I wish we could have had it sooner. I do think, Dr. Battle, this warrants some follow-up. I want to make sure that people understand that any legal issues in whatever our final draft looks like, we will make sure that is vetted and accurate, and we're not enforcing or putting anything in here that puts the way we serve people into any kind of questionable conditions or situations. And then lastly, this is a learning experience for Dr. Battle. And so there's a lot of things, like we tried to give her an abundance of information to help her in working on the draft. And it may have just been our fault that we didn't necessarily give her all of the COC and HUD guidance to help her kind of synthesize this. Because I hear us talking about a lot of other policies that we feel like the way this is written is kind of doesn't follow some recommended strategies or clear guidelines. So I would just ask for us to give Dr. Battle just a little grace.
Yeah.
In doing that, because that is not her intent to, draft a policy that does that. And then lastly, I don't think it came off as critical, but I just want us to be mindful that this is not something she does every day.
Yeah,
So
may I
go ahead.
speak? I really would like to just thank everyone for the feedback. I feel very much that we're working as a team. I came in to facilitate, and happy to do, all I can to support in this process beyond facilitating. I would also like to add that I really do try to practice listening to hear rather than listening to respond. And, I feel my role in this capacity, in drafting this policy, is to really hear what each person has to say and consider it. We're not going to get it right on the first draft. And to Anissa's point, whether I have all the documents or not, I think there are legal minds that need to review certain things. The feedback and the clarification today has helped us to, you know, clarify quite a few things and get closer to be able to finalize the policy. Nothing has, you know, really come off as critical. I really want to ensure that we are all heard, and know that whether you provided feedback initially that you don't feel like it's considered, just know that it could have been an oversight. I'm definitely going to go back and review those documents again. I want to ensure that whether this looks like or presents as an initial policy in place, there's no reason to go back and really reinvent the wheel if there are things that are already in place that's working. So this is here for you to actually just provide feedback and you know, clarify and ask for clarifying questions, ask your clarifying questions. And again, we're working as a team and I'm merely facilitating, you know, and I'm happy to, you know, continue this process and see it through. So please know that we're working as a team and we're working to support the unhoused communities, and whether we will not all agree on everything. Hence the reason I included that 3-phase so that we can all consider in phases what that could potentially look like. And Anise again mentioned something about those 3 phases, which again, while, you know, someone from the outside looking in may think that is a great approach, it may not be, or it may work, or it may work in some other capacity within the system. And I feel like as we're offering this, we're also offering ideas, you know, to HSAC that they can potentially implement. So and I really do appreciate this. As I said, I'm a student. This is a learning experience, and I'm happy to continue to ensure that all of this is you know, revised and will be presented until you know, we as a team or Ms. McCullers feels that it's ready, and you, most importantly, feel like this is ready to move forward. And I don't see any reason for it to be rushed, because I feel like it's too important to rush something like this. And we want to make sure that all voices are heard. So thank you all so much for this opportunity, and I look forward to the next meeting and to revising based on the feedback today. Know that you can also send an email to Ms. McCullers and she will forward them to me as well. Thank you all so much. Ms. McCullers, I'm finished. Your hand is up. You're muted. If you're talking, you're muted.
She just texted me that she had a clinic emergency, so she may
Oh,
have needed
okay.
to jump off
And
and
she didn't mention that she would have been in and out with her work. So,
yeah, so I
okay,
think-
well, is Miss Burnett on or?
Yes,
No.
I'm here.
Okay, so, Miss Herbert, do you have anything to share? Are we okay? Miss Burnett, are you okay in closing out?
I can close this out, but just for point of clarity, is there a deadline on which you would like to receive the feedback so I can send it to you at one time?
Sure. I would say I'd like to work on it early next week. So if you can get it to me the latest by Sunday evening.
Okay. That
Or
concludes
everyone.
the meeting unless anyone has anything else, any other feedback. I will be checking the Durham Open Doors email for the feedback so I can get it to Dr. Battle and she can consider it, and we can schedule the next meeting. We'll decide when that is, when Sharita comes back.
So we'll go ahead and close out. Did you get, sorry, Sharita, I was trying to text with Sharita. Dr. Battle, did you get a date that you need feedback back by?
Oh, yes. So I'm saying if I could get those feedback by, oh, you mean back to the group?
Well, no, what I'm saying is we want to collect information via email, get it back to you.
Sunday
So
evening?
Friday the 28th, if we want to give people till Wednesday to give us feedback to get used
Oh,
to by
okay.
next Friday,
That's
or do
fine.
you want longer?
Yes, so it just matters when the next meeting will be.
We haven't scheduled that, so we
Okay.
want to make sure you have time. I don't want to
Okay.
you when you get all this information. There may
Yeah, definitely.
let's get you the
Let me look at the
information.
calendar.
We could get, how about if we get you the information
By
and
Wednesday?
what needs to be done? If we get information back to you by next Friday, then you can take a look at it and we can sort of say, does this meeting need to happen? You know, the next meeting might need to be a week from or 2 weeks out, depending on how much comes back that needs to be sent
Sure.
aside.
Okay, sounds good.
So let's
That
schedule.
gives me another weekend to work through it. Okay, no
Let's schedule the
problem.
next meeting after we see what comes back and you have an idea of what the
For
workload.
sure, for sure.
Because you're doing this out of the greatness of your heart and we appreciate it. And
Thank
we don't
you.
want to be adding stress to your life or
For
adding
sure.
extra work to you.
No problem. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. So
Okay.
feedback needs to be back to opening doors, email address no later than Wednesday night. So we have time to compile it all and get it sent over to Dr. Battle by next Friday.
Okay.
And then
Sounds good.
we'll send out an email, an invite for the next meeting after Dr. Battle has a time to get her head wrapped around it to figure
Yeah.
out what the next steps will be and the time it'll take.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Have a
Thank you
great
all.
day.
Have a good one.
You all have a great day.
Thank you all. Have a great day.